Good evening, everyone, and welcome to the live stream. I hope you're all very well this evening. Let's see who we have on tonight. We have Duke, great to see you. Tiny Demolition Lover, great to have you on. Hope you're well. We have Nico, great to see you, Nico. Killer, thanks for moderating, great to see you. We have Kokalicker, great to see you. We have Dr. Johan with the super chat. Thank you so much, Dr. Johan. Hope you're well. Cool. Is that a response or is that a suggestion? Because it's pretty hot. Not as hot in Italy as it is in the UK, in London in particular, around that area. It's very, very hot at the moment, and everyone please drink lots of water. Try and find somewhere cool to I don't know, to hide from the heat if possible. Very dangerous times. And a consequence, of course, of climate change, and we can expect more of this in the future. Thanks, Dr. Johan. Maximinius, great to see you. Raven 1983 Witch, great to have you on. We have Derek, great to see you, Derek. Who else have we got? Ministerian, great to see you. Hope you're well. We also have Young Ralph, News Channel. Mark Vimster, great to see you all. Brian, Jean T, Alf, Chatty Rat, great to see you all. Hope you're well. CGM, great to see you too. Mega Hairy Bomb. And so many more. Great to see everyone on the stream. Hope you're all very well. Remember, you can support the channel by hitting me with a super chat and I'll read it out during the stream. And we're going to talk about a few things tonight. Of course, the Tory race. We're going to talk about the situation with the fires taking place in Britain at the moment, and the heat, and what's the response from the politicians. And I also want to talk about the cost of living crisis, and maybe touch on what's happening with the Labour Party. There was a report today about anti-Semitism within the Labour Party and how it was dealt with. You sound better today, Max. Thank you so much, Davey. So I was trying to do some recording from the UK when I was over. So I was in London, for people who don't know. I tried to organise a meet-up with some people, but unfortunately it was so chaotic, it was very difficult to organise. I was just there for 2 days, more or less, Friday and a Saturday, and then I was planning to return on the Sunday, but there was a strike here in Italy with air traffic control, I think it was, or some ground staff. So I was forced to try to fly the next day to Mallorca, not for a holiday, but just to get a directing flight, a connecting flight from Mallorca to Venice. A disaster. It was a nightmare, and I slept very little, and it was not a nice experience, the travel. But I had a wonderful time in London. I'm just so sorry I wasn't able to meet up with people. I was trying to do some recording. I was trying to meet some people that had organized some events. I maybe be able to talk about some of those things in the future, not now, but did have a very interesting experience with Byline Times. I hope some of you got to see that. I'm sorry I didn't give you more of a heads up on it. What happened was I didn't know the interview was going to be broadcast. So I thought they just wanted to have a chat with me, but they actually broadcast the interview and then they put it on straight away, and I didn't know exactly what was going on. So apologies if I wasn't very clear. Magic, great to see you on the stream. Thanks for that super chat. Shame people don't have the money to hide in a fridge to keep cool like Bozo. Yes. Well, Boris Johnson was keeping quite cool when he was at 30,000 feet in a fighter plane, doing loop-the-loops when he should have been actually down on the ground, leading some sort of response to this. Of course, he didn't attend the Cobra meetings because, well, he doesn't bother to attend Cobra meetings. Thanks for that super chat. Is it ridiculous? What's the point in Boris Johnson staying there? He's doing nothing. He just has some sort of bucket list to complete. What's actually, guys, what's on Boris Johnson's bucket list? He's flown a fighter plane. What else has he done? He's he's taken the whip away from MPs he doesn't like. I wonder what's next on the list. Go back in time to discover when Jacob Rees-Mogg was born. I don't know. I live in cooler Wales in a cool house and it's still warm. The UK newspapers get ready to run the headline, "In Liz we Truss." Yes, it's looking more and more likely that Liz Truss is going to come out on top, and you can see in this this report here, Kimi Badenoch has been eliminated from the Conservative leadership race, setting up a battle between Penny Mordaunt and Liz Truss to join Rishi Sunak in the last round. Some bookmakers are now giving odds, making Truss the new favourite in the contest. Those are the implied odds of winning the S Markets, the betting exchange company. And you can see here, so Liz Truss 48%, Rishi Sunak 40%, and Penny Mordaunt 12%. So if you look at how Liz Truss is, well, she's trending upwards, so she's looking more and more likely to come out on top. Would this be good for the Labour Party? I actually think it'd be better for the Labour Party to have Liz Truss in charge than Rishi Sunak, because Liz Truss is an absolute idiot, while Rishi Sunak is more ruthless. He's disconnected from reality, but Liz Truss is just an idiot. Liz Truss makes May look dynamic. Yeah, she can't speak. She's a terrible speaker, extremely wooden. Everything is prepared, overly prepared, and she's not able to respond to questions. She just regurgitates her fixed talking points. And she's been really caught out on in a number of interviews that are going to, the internet never forgets. So those are going to be repeated ad nauseum if she becomes Prime Minister. Ninja, thanks so much for that super chat. Blocked COVID inquiries. This inquiry that the Conservatives were supposed to start. This is something, and very good point, and thanks for that super chat. This is something that needs to be highlighted, but it's part and parcel of Boris Johnson's administration, his government, is that, we're going to do something, and then they hope that the public forget about it and move on. And the inquiry was supposed to begin, or how can you say, the preparation for it at least should have begun, and it hasn't. We haven't heard anything about the inquiry, unless it's happening all behind closed doors, but that shouldn't be the case. I hope Liz Truss wins. She is so useless and incompetent. It's an open goal for Labour. Edward Elizabeth Hitler. Eddie, great to see you on the stream. 27 degrees and overcast in southwest Scotland. Humidity the destroyer. 27 degrees with humidity. You'll soon have mosquitoes in Scotland, and I'm not joking. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. How long before we force a change of government? This is not another case of somebody who was unelected. Okay, so the problem with the system is that you elect the party, not the Prime Minister. So this is how it's possible for Boris Johnson to resign and Liz Truss or Rishi Sunak or Penny Mordaunt just to take over. They don't need to be elected Prime Minister. They're just they claim to be running on the same manifesto as the 2019 one, which was Boris Johnson's. But Boris Johnson hasn't fulfilled that manifesto, and he's not planning to, and the Conservatives are not planning to, because one aspect of the manifesto was not to increase national insurance, and they increased national insurance. One was to build 40 new hospitals. You're not going to build 40 new hospitals, even if you say I'm going to respect it. You're not going to build 40 new hospitals between now and 2024. What was the other aspect? Get Brexit done. Yeah, okay. See how that's going. The midges will kill the mosquitoes. But how long will there be for a change of government? 2024. That's when the government will change. So if Rishi Sunak, Liz Truss or Penny Mordaunt takes over from Johnson, if Johnson actually goes, because I actually heard something today about that Boris Johnson may try and run as leader again or something. Or he might run in an election. I'm not sure what. I don't remember exactly the details, but something about Boris Johnson not going away. That he would try. There are a number of MPs. I think it's MPs or party members. I don't remember which. No, it's probably party members who are campaigning for Boris Johnson to be able to run again as leader or something like that. Ruth Boris is stopping Scotland leaving. Ruth Boris is stopping Scotland leaving. If Liz wins, hope she kicks Boris out. No, she probably won't, because I thought that they would try and break from Johnson and his administration and say, okay, we're going to have a clean slate. But it doesn't seem to be the case, because I think they're afraid of pissing off those people who voted for Johnson in 2019. Johnson's legacy is going to cast a massive shadow over these whoever replaces him. And it's going to be a big problem for them to do anything, because a lot of the media still support Johnson. So it's going to be very difficult for them to say, okay, let's go in a different direction. And then if you're going to just continue on with what Boris Johnson was doing, then when the general election comes, how are you going to, what will you represent? More of the same? More of this disastrous response to the cost of living crisis? More Brexit and the disaster that goes along with that? More indifference to democracy? More attempts to run roughshod over Parliament and the judiciary? How many things do we have to say? So if you present yourself as more of the same, then you're going to be trashed. But then you can't break too much from Johnson, because he still has a considerable amount of support. Look at the vote that took place yesterday. You would imagine Boris Johnson would have lost it, but he won it. So for now, it seems that it's likely Truss or Rishi Sunak. There's another part I wanted to just mention as well. There's also the Ford report. So the next question is, who is Badenoch? Who are her supporters going to support next? So something I'm worried about this lady is that she's very far right, and I'm concerned that what she's going to do is she's going to hope to gain some sort of cabinet position within whatever administration comes out of this, and it could be something quite senior, where she'd have significant amount of clout. And of course she's going to try and run for Prime Minister again sometime in the future. But she's already gained a massive following, and she's she was unknown to most of us, to most of the population until recently, and now she has got a massive amount of publicity. That she didn't run to win, she ran to boost her image, and she's definitely done that. And far right candidate, far right individual. Support, isn't it her that's was supported by Britain First, the racist organization? Anyway, let's see the clip.
Badenoch, 59 votes. Mordaunt, 92 votes. Sunak, 118 votes. Truss, 86 votes. There was one spoiled ballot paper. We had a full turn, we had one vote not cast. So Kemi Badenoch is eliminated from the election. The remaining three candidates will proceed to a final ballot of the Parliamentary Party tomorrow. This will take place, I mean it this time, will take place between 1 and 3, with the result declared at 4 o'clock tomorrow afternoon. Thank you. Good.
Let's just recap the figures for you then. Kemi Badenoch is out of the Tory leadership race. She got 59 votes. That's the same. That means she is out of the running. And then there were 3. Rishi Sunak getting the most votes, 118. That's 3 more than he got in the last round by my calculation. Penny Mordaunt, the second highest number of votes with 92, 10 more than she got in the last round of voting. And Liz Truss is on 86. And I'm just trying to do the maths on that. That is about 12 more, I think. Actually, Beth will know more. Let's bring back in our political editor, Beth Rigby. So Kemi Badenoch gone. Yes. And as you said before, that's probably no surprise. But the big question is, who does she put her support behind now out of those final 3?
Yeah, I think, SJ, the first thing to say about it is that Badenoch did not make progress. In fact, she went 1 back. So what do we know from that? The right is now coalescing around Liz Truss. She has had a good run there. She has added 15 votes from the last round. That is good momentum for Liz Truss. The right now coalescing. Some of Badenoch's vote may be going to her. Let's see with that. But then also with Penny Mordaunt, she's gone from 81 to 92, so 11 of the Tom Tugendhat votes. So I'm just looking around to see what MPs are here. 11 of the Tugendhat votes have gone to Mordaunt. So now look at that. It's a real battle between Mordaunt and Truss. Rishi Sunak didn't quite get past the 120 threshold, but let's see where the Badenoch votes break now. Will she go to Liz Truss? Will she break for Rishi Sunak? Will Michael Gove break for Rishi Sunak? He backed Badenoch. Where will he go? There are 59 votes up for grabs, and it will be those votes that decide whether it's Liz Truss or Penny Mordaunt into the final 2. There is now just 6.
Yeah, look, if you look at the people who voted for Badenoch, they're more likely to go to Liz Truss than to Rishi Sunak. So it's looking more and more likely that Liz Truss will win it, even though she's quite far behind at the moment. But it's looking at, you have to look at which way are the votes going to go. Isn't it interesting, just a side issue here, isn't it interesting that the Conservatives didn't use first past the post here? Why didn't they use first past the post to select their new leader? It's like they don't trust it. It's good enough for the people, but not good enough for them. Yes. Oh, damn, I'm having some streaming problems. Apologies, guys, if you see some streaming problems. I think it's YouTube is messing up or something. Hopefully that won't become too much of a problem during the stream tonight. Thought Gove was backing Truss. He's probably backing her now. I don't think he'll back Rishi Sunak. I think you're starting to see a sort of ideological split within the Tories now. You have the far rights, when it comes to social issues, backing Liz Truss and Brexiteers, and you have the more moderate of the party backing Rishi Sunak. But I don't see Sunak winning it. It's looking more and more likely that Liz Truss will. Penny Mordaunt, because she's not gaining anything, she hasn't made any significant gains, it's likely she will run out of steam. And then she'll be offered probably a position somewhere within one of these cabinets. They'll say that in these debates, they'll say all the worst possible things under the sun towards their rivals, and then as soon as the race is over, they're kissing their arses. It's disgusting. Adam, thanks so much for that super chat, Adam. Thank you so much. Very kind of you. If Truss wins, stuck up on popcorn, it'll be a comedy. If Liz Truss wins, it will be a bloodbath. For example, imagine her in Prime Minister's questions. She's not able to, if you look at her answering questions generally, she doesn't know what she's doing. She has to have a prepared script. She's not able to answer questions on the fly, on her feet. she's terrible. And, you know, she has to be somebody who can motivate people to come out and vote for her. If you ask people around the country, would you come out enthusiastically and support Liz Truss? No, I don't think so. And I think a big problem for her also is the idea, now not within the Conservative Party, but maybe maybe ordinary voters, the idea that she was a Remainer and then she became a Brexiteer. You know, that works well with Tories who just don't give a crap. But I think within the red wall, they may say, I'm not so sure about that. Magic says, Magic, thanks for that super chat. Rishi has the 48 red wallers. They are nailed on. Yeah, because they need Rishi Sunak to level up. They know that if Penny Mordaunt or Liz Truss win the nomination, win the not the nomination, that's for a primary, but win the leadership campaign, then they know that they're frigged. They're going to be abandoned, because they're living in hope that Rishi Sunak will do something to pump money north, towards the north, but the other two would not do that. Adam, thanks for that super chat. Hi Max, when are we going to do some comedy gold? As soon as, normally at the 1 hour mark, so we've still a good bit to go yet. But I do promise some comedy gold. But Liz Truss will also provide some comedy gold, I'm pretty sure, over the next number of months, if she's elected leader. The 4 horsemen of the apocalypse, take your pick. The Tupperware lady Truss would be easy to beat, but I think they're bluffing. British people are applying for Irish passports in record numbers. Yes, because if you have an Irish passport, you have you have freedom of movement. Basically, you can travel around Europe without the restrictions that you do with a British passport only. And of course, within the UK and Ireland have the free travel area, so you're able to move without any problems as well. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. So the Supreme Court says it's going to answer the Indie vote case after Waste Monster said don't try the case. Yes, so it seems that the Supreme Court is actually going to go ahead. So what happened was, for those who don't know, the Attorney General in Scotland, the Scottish equivalent of the Attorney General, was instructed by the Scottish government to ask or to request a ruling on whether the Scottish government could hold a second referendum on independence. And the British government, the UK government, decided, no, we want to stop that. So they actually interfered, or tried to interfere with that judgment. And the Supreme Court says, feck off. Basically, we are going to rule on it. Now, of course, we talked about this during the live stream. Sorry, what am I saying? I'm a bit confused today. We spoke about that during the Sunday brunch or Sunday roast with our Scottish friends. And if it doesn't go through, so if the Supreme Court say no, the Scottish government can't hold a second referendum, then the last route would be during elections. The SNP would run on one issue, and that would be independence. And there's nothing to stop them from doing that. And then what they would do is say, if we win a majority, then that is a majority for independence. And they would proclaim independence. They would say this is a mandate for independence. I think there is already a mandate for independence, because the Greens and the SNP have already been talking about how they support independence. That would be part of their manifesto, and people have supported that. Adam, thanks so much for that super chat. I'm talking you and I, mate. We could do some comedy. Yes. Oh, sure. Yeah, I'd be up for that. Sorry, Mr. Alistair's other super chat. Hi, Max and chat. Max, keep up the top content. Thank you so much, Alistair. Some of these super chats are not appearing for some reason, so apologies if I don't see them immediately. But Adam, yes, we have been talking for a long time about meeting up and doing some comedy gold, or at least talking about some interesting topics. SNP have been running on that for 15 years in government. Good point, Davey. So here are the results. Rishi Sunak, Penny Mordaunt, and Liz Truss, and they're dropping. The others are dropping like flies. But as I said, it'll probably come down to Rishi Sunak and Liz Truss, and I think it's more likely to. I think it's more likely the party will go with Liz Truss, and I don't know. It's something could happen at the last minute, but I think it's more likely they'll pick Truss here. And as most of you believe, Truss would be a disaster for the Conservatives. Rishi Sunak isn't great either. He's completely disconnected from reality, disconnected from people's ordinary lives. But Liz Truss just isn't very good at speaking. She's not very good at, I don't think she's very good at campaigning. Compare her to Boris Johnson. Boris Johnson is a clown, but Boris Johnson is very good at campaigning, very good at going out and meeting with people. A lot of people believed, that he was the right guy back in 2019. He's a bit rough around the edges. He's a bit of a clown. He's a bit of a liar, but we'll give him a go. Do you see them doing that with Liz Truss? I think she would be, as someone said, less dynamic than Theresa May. So, Ed, great to see you on the stream. Tory leadership contest is like picking your favorite flavor of poop. Pretty much, yes. Max, did you hear Sammy Wilson in Parliament about global warming? Yes, and I'll probably do a response video to that tomorrow, maybe tonight for tomorrow, so definitely look around for that. Yes, and there was something interesting in the clip as well, which I'll point out when I do it. But yeah, Sammy Wilson, guy who believes probably believes that the Earth is 6 to 10,000 years old. What's his qualification to say that it's all a hoax or it's all nonsense? Yes, you have people who have dedicated their life to climate science, people who have studied it for years, decades in some cases, have been looking at the data, looking at trends and graphs and all of the material available on one side, and you have Sammy Wilson on the other, who was probably just after knocking down a bottle of Buckfast before he went into the House of Commons. No, I think I'll take my chances with the scientists. In the same way that you'd probably, if you're having heart surgery, you'd probably rely on a surgeon and not some guy down the pub. Now, some people may prefer to allow some guy down the pub to do the operation on them. I wouldn't. Maybe Sammy Wilson would, but anyway. James, thanks so much for that super chat. It would be hilarious if Sunak went out the next round. That'd be very embarrassing, yes. It would be extremely embarrassing for him. But I think it's more likely Penny Mordaunt because of the trend. So he has gained more support. He is continuing to gain support. Penny Mordaunt has pretty much flatlined, and Liz Truss is gaining support as well. So it's it depends on where Badenoch's Badenoch's support goes to, and I think it's more likely to go to Liz Truss than Rishi Sunak. It's possible it could also go to Penny Mordaunt, but I think the far right within the party is rallying to Liz Truss's side, which is surprising because Liz Truss, if you believed her ideology, she isn't far right. But I think this is about controlling someone or having someone who's easily manipulated as their puppet in Parliament. But it would be hilarious, yes. Adam, thanks so much for that super chat. Okay, mate, I'll message you. I'm in the Stanlow Refinery, so flat chat, but can take time for comedy. Enjoy the coffees. Speak soon. Bollocks to Brexit and bollocks to the scum party. Yes, bollocks to Brexit. Thanks, Adam. Thanks for the coffees. I'll check that out after. Thank you so much, and I do hope to meet up with you. There is an event taking place in September, and I may be attending it. It's a march, pro-EU march, anti-Brexit march, but we should hear more details about that later in the coming months. I have been invited to attend, and I would love to go. So I think it's sometime in September, but I'll keep you guys posted if you don't already know about it. Dizzy Lizzie, did Thatcher up? She would win this. Dig Thatcher up, she would win this. Probably. Just have her sit there, skeletal remains, and the Tories would vote for it. Will Penny Flop do splash exit? Probably. Samuel Wilson can he finish the crossword? Wilson always looks like a boiling cattle. Rat your blood, mate. Blood pressure, mate. Watch your blood pressure, mate. Truss is more Iron Lad than Iron Lady. Yeah, my dad and Nan want Liz Truss to win because she would make a good leader, apparently. Wow. Phil apparently will be speaking at that march. Cool. It'd be great to meet up with Phil. I've never met Phil in person, so it'd be great to do that. I think it's on the 10th of September or 19th of September. I need to check again, but it'd be great to attend that. Anyway, let's move on. Sticking with this topic, of course, a Defence Secretary appears unenthused by Liz Truss's spending pledge. So Ben Wallace has questioned the viability of a pledge made by Conservative leadership contender Liz Truss to dramatically increase the defence budget, warning that this Parliament would not be able to make good use of the extra billions available. This is once again a swing, attempt to court the right. Yeah, we're going to spend more and more on defence. Like the Republicans in the US, it's really worrying how the Conservatives are taking the Trump playbook and the Republican playbook and running with it. We saw it when they were attempting to bring in voter ID. That's a typical tactic by Republicans in the US to make it more and more difficult for poor working class people, ethnic minorities to vote in elections. And of course they normally vote against the Republicans in the US and against the Conservatives in the UK. Make it more difficult for those demographics to vote, then you're a shoo-in at the next election. All you need to do is convince your people to come out, make it easier for your people to come out, make it more difficult for the opposition's support base. And this is where, the Labour Party really need to bring in PR at the next election. If they win, they need to immediately go with proportional representation. This would completely undermine the Tories' chances of winning elections. And it's more democratic. Of course, it'd be difficult but you would have to. I wouldn't do it through a referendum. I'd do it through Parliament, and you'd have to do it extremely quickly, not allowing the media to engage in Project Fear, because that's what they would be doing. The Tory media will be defending the Tories and attacking this proposal. Anyway, back to this. The Defence Secretary, a favourite from the Tory grassroots, refused to say which of the three leadership candidates he would back, but appeared enthusiastic about Liz Truss's promise to lift defence spending to 2.5% of GDP by 2026 and 3% in 2030. Wouldn't it be great if they actually, increased spending on welfare, increased benefits to people? No, we're going to spend lots on the military, but to hell with people who are on universal credit or on benefits. If it was just a blob of money tomorrow morning, I wouldn't be able to spend it. Wallace said on a visit to Farnborough Air Show. Is this the one that Boris Johnson was attending, flying in response to a question about whether he'd endorse the Foreign Secretary's pledge? So he's not supporting Liz Truss, because if he supported Liz Truss, he'd say, yeah, this is mess, this is wonderful, well done, Liz, you're the only one who's actually giving us what we need. So he's probably more likely to be supporting Rishi Sunak or Mordaunt at this stage. Mordor at this stage. The Truss proposal would lift defence spending by a little over £10 billion in 4 years from its current £48.2 billion, based on figures supplied by to The Guardian by the Institute for Fiscal Studies, and by another £12 billion or more in the run-up to 2030. That would over double the increase announced by outgoing Prime Minister Boris Johnson at the NATO summit last month, where he committed to raising defence spending from the current 2.1% of GDP to 2.5% from 2025 to the end of the decade. See, the problem also with this is it's very easy for these candidates just to throw out numbers. Yeah, I'm going to increase defence spending by 50%, 100%, 1,000%. But it's very easy for them to say that, but there's no costing done here. How is it going to be paid for? What is it going to, where's the money going to go? Is it just giving the Department of Defence a lump sum? Or will it involve, you have to spend it on, replacing equipment or refurbishing equipment? Or is it a blank check that they can spend it on whatever they want? We don't even know how, we don't know how this money is going to be raised, where it's going to come from. Is it going to be raised through taxes? Is it going to be raised through borrowing? Is it involving cuts somewhere else? She just comes up with numbers she pulls out of her behind. That should be the first question, not how am I going to spend it? Where are you going to get this money? Because when it comes to anything else, if you say, I'm going to increase welfare spending, the first response from the opposition or the opposition to you and the media is, how are you going to raise that money? Where is it coming from? How are you going to pay for it? Truss Prime Minister Mog, DPM, Nadine Chancellor. No, please. Please do not say these things, Alistair, because they could come true. We always thought, Boris Johnson as Prime Minister, that would be a joke. A few years ago, somebody was to suggest Boris Johnson's Prime Minister. Yeah, you're having a laugh. Really, pull the other one. But, Jacob Rees-Mogg as Deputy Prime Minister, Nadine Dorries as Chancellor. Possible. It's... But look, if you look at who has done it before, yes, it's completely plausible. Mark Francois as Defence Secretary. No, I think not Jacob Rees-Mogg as deputy. He'd be put in charge of, I don't know, technology or something like that. Rees-Mogg is Minister of Nannies. Everyone gets a nanny. Truss delivers things like new houses and human rights abuses raised with Saudi Arabia, or milk produce trade with a lactose intolerant Far East. We're going to sell cheese to Japan. We're going to sell whiskey to Saudi Arabia. We're going to sell, I don't know, fridges to people in Alaska. Well, no, they probably still have fridges in Alaska. It still gets quite warm in the summer, I imagine. I I don't know, in south in the South Pole. But then with climate change, maybe they will be needing some fridges soon. Plausible has taken long vacation for as Tory appointments go. The arrangement where Blojo is living off the privileges of still being Prime Minister with no responsibilities wouldn't be done in any other nation besides maybe Russia or China. Vengeful squatter, desperate. Yes, this idea that Boris Johnson is still Prime Minister. He's not attending Cobra meetings, and his ministers are jumping through hoops to defend that. What is the point of Boris Johnson being still in number 10? What is the value of having Boris Johnson? He's not doing anything. Unless it's something for himself. Like doing loop-the-loops in military aircraft. Or having parties at Chequers. It's alleged that he doesn't want to leave because he wants to use Chequers for his wedding and a wedding reception. I thought he had already got married, but anyway. But he wants to use Chequers for some parties or something. So that's why he's staying on. And, how can people within the Conservative Party look at this and say, yeah, this is okay. Yeah, this is not going to come back and bite us on the arse in the next number of months and years. No, we're going to be perfectly fine. Tomalik, thanks so much for that super chat. Gerrymandering again in current right-wing politics. Again, Max. Can the grown-ups take control now? Tin pot Tories. I'm afraid that, if they won't get rid of him within their own no confidence procedure, and they won't get rid of him in a parliamentary no confidence procedure, then they can't get rid of him, or that they're not interested in getting rid of him. Like, you've seen how many of them queued up to resign. But and I said at the time, and I hate saying this because I keep getting right about this, I said at the time, within a few months, people will have forgotten. And Boris Johnson will still be there, and will be under some sort of strange impression that, did he actually resign? Did his ministers actually resign? I remember reading something about it, but maybe it didn't actually happen. Because maybe Boris Johnson will come out and say, I never gave a speech. What are you talking about? I never said I was going to resign. Yeah, I gave a speech in front of number 10, but I didn't say I was going to resign. Why should I resign? I'm doing a wonderful job. And his ministers go, yeah, he's doing a wonderful job. He should stay in his position. He's the right man. He got all the big calls right. 80-seat majority, vaccine rollout, get Brexit done. Is this what we're going to see in September? And the public going, what? Really? They won't get rid of him. No matter how bad he is, they won't get rid of him. Alexis, thanks so much for that super chat as well. Imagine if Tobias Elwood joined the SNP. I don't see him joining the... No, Tobias Elwood, so today I uploaded a video about that. Tobias Elwood has had the whip removed. So what is he going to do? I think he'd be more likely to join the Liberal Democrats than the SNP or the Labour Party. But this is amazing. You've been elected. You're doing your job. He's the chair of the Defence Select Committee. He's challenged Boris Johnson, and kudos to him for doing that. Unfortunately, he voted many times with the party on things that he should not have. Nobody's perfect, I guess, especially when it comes to some of these people. But you've had the whip removed because Boris Johnson doesn't like you. Boris Johnson throwing a tantrum, wanting something, wanting to do some damage before he leaves, and he removes the whip from Tobias Elwood. If I were Elwood, I would join the Liberal Democrats or the Labour Party to piss off Boris Johnson and the Tories. You throw me under a bus, I'm going to throw you under a bus. And I would be shouting at Johnson from the rooftops. I would be going on TV and criticising him as much as I could, and the party. I'd be criticising the Conservatives as much as possible. Because I think if he did run as a Liberal Democrat, he would win his seat. Because I think people in his constituency didn't support him because of getting Brexit done or because of Boris Johnson. But I could be wrong. Thanks for that super chat, but it'd be interesting if he joined the SNP. Boris Johnson, diplomat to Ukraine. My God, no, please, Alistair, no, don't make these suggestions because they'll probably come true. Please, I don't want we have enough of Boris Johnson. From September, he should just go away and be forgotten about. We should never hear his name ever again, unless it's in reference to the past. But I think you're probably right. They'll give Boris Johnson some sort of ceremonial role. God forbid they put him in the House of Lords. Lord Johnson. I shouldn't say these things because it feels like, if you say them, they will come to pass. But, just think of the maddest thing ever, the craziest thing ever, and that's probably it. That's what's going to happen. Boris Johnson, the House of Lords, Boris Johnson as, ambassador to Ukraine. Was it Johnson who spoiled his ballot paper today? Probably. Oh my God. Yeah, maybe. Thanks, Alistair. Gareth, great to see you on the stream. Hope you're well. Shag my flag and call me a Tory. It's hot max. I'm sweating like Boris Johnson at child maintenance meditation. Mediation, sorry. Or, a Tory at church. Yes. Well said, Gareth. Yeah. I wonder if Prince Andrew is sweating today. 40 degrees. Is that, or is he's not possible? It's not. He's not able to sweat. Is that how it works with Prince Andrew? He doesn't sweat even in 40 degrees. It'd be interesting to see some pictures. Have him do a 5K and see if he's sweating. Number 3, thanks so much for that super chat. It's mass mesmerization, Nazi-inspired psychological animal herd mentality, adult child play, role play, etc. It is. It's this attempt to convince the public that it's a type of gaslighting. Boris Johnson didn't say that. You're mistaken. You're trying to put words into his mouth. Boris Johnson is an honest individual. Boris Johnson didn't lie. You're just trying to badmouth him. You're just trying to increase your own platform or your own image in the media by saying that, by attacking the Prime Minister. The Prime Minister is doing a wonderful job. He got all the big calls right. The vaccine rollout, all this sort of rubbish. And yeah, it's an attempt to convince the public if you lie enough to the public, they will begin to believe some of it. That's all you need to do. If you pump out 100 lies and 30 of them are believed as true, then you have succeeded. If one of them is believed to have been true, you have succeeded. And that's what seems to be happening with the Conservatives at the moment. Just lie after lie after lie. And if enough people believe one of them, then you have succeeded. And there, success. Done. You've demonstrated that lying works. And you just continue with more and more and more of it. And what it does is it undermines democracy, because people expect government to do certain things, like building the 40 new hospitals. If Boris Johnson doesn't build the 40 new hospitals, and people are not informed that he made that promise and he did not fulfill that promise, then many people will turn around at the next election and vote Tory, not understanding that they were lied to. Or believing that, well, all politicians lie, so if Boris Johnson said he'd build 40 hospitals and he didn't, well, that's the consequences of living in a parliamentary democracy. But it's not. There's a difference between promising to do something and not fully achieving it, or promising to do something and not being able to achieve that because of some sort of something that was unprecedented or unpredicted. That's different. But Boris Johnson did lie. Boris Johnson knew he was lying. One of the best examples was when he was talking about leaving the EU on the 31st of October 2019. He was like, yeah, we're leaving. Even though he knew, I knew, you knew, everyone knew that was not going to happen, because the Benn Act had gone through Parliament and it said Boris Johnson needs to go and ask for an extension. And Boris Johnson told the public, we're leaving on the 31st of October. The same with the border in the Irish Sea. There will be no border in the Irish Sea. There will be no border in the Irish Sea. And then there was a border in the Irish Sea. He knew that there was going to be a border. He knew from the very beginning that there would be a border somewhere. People sat down with him and told him, the border has to go somewhere, in the Irish Sea or on the island of Ireland. If you put it on the island of Ireland, there'll be some serious consequences. The lesser of the two evils will be to put the border on the island of Ireland. In the Irish Sea. So what did he do? He went with the lesser of two evils. The road of least resistance. The better road, of course, would be to remain as the UK maintain the UK as a whole in the single market and the customs union, but that for some people wouldn't have been Brexit. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Boris Johnson, Baron of Babies and Lord of Lorpak. Where do you come up with this stuff? It's amazing. Baron of Babies. I want to put that on a t-shirt. If some of the admins or moderators are reading this, please take a note of that. Picture of Boris Johnson, Baron of Babies, Lord of Lorpak. Maybe Lorpak is copyright, so we can't go with that, but definitely Baron of Babies. It's like, what was his name? Robert Baratheon, he had babies all over the place and nobody knew where they were. They had to do sort of a dark moment in not Lord of the Rings, in Game of Thrones. Anyway, one of the many dark episodes. Fearless Wolf, thanks so much for that super chat. Minister of Lonely Women. Who is that? Liz Truss, Minister of Lonely Women. Or are you talking about somebody else? Or stay in the single market and the customs union? Yes, Alex. So I'm thinking Rishi Sunak or maybe Mordaunt is the one who's getting the backing of the Defence Secretary. I'm surprised he wouldn't be backing Truss, but it's more likely he's backing someone else if he's criticising Truss. If he's backing Truss, he would say, yes, it's a wonderful deal. It's a wonderful idea. Run with it. It's great. Okay, guys, well, let's take a short break, comedy moment, and I'll see you back in just a jiffy with the serious stuff. So I hope you enjoy this.
The sound of leather on willow. Church bells ringing out across a village green. Afternoon tea, bulldogs, flags, war, the backbones of Britain. They're what I believe in, and I know they're what you believe in too. As you may be aware, the Conservative Party is choosing a new leader for the Conservative Party and a new Prime Minister for the Conservative Party. I'm the Right Honourable Sir Edwin Beaufort, and I'm standing to be your supreme leader. I'm one of you, a simple lad born to Lord Sir Charles Beaufort, the Duke of Marlborough, and Lady Arabella Trevelyan Smythe in Belgravia in 1929. I am the dynamic and fresh start the Conservatives need. I've come a long way since my parents immigrated to London from Oxford, but my values endure. I value friendship with newspaper owners at home and inspirational leaders on the international stage. I value fairness, a fair society where we can all succeed based on our individual merits, something I learned in my years at Eton and Harrow. I value freedom, instilled in me by my Filipino nanny, who's forced to come to the UK to breastfeed me, and who still does to this day. I value service and celebrate those who have dedicated their lives to the betterment of these sceptred isles. You can trust I'll work hard for you as Prime Minister, as I hold no fewer than 14 other consultancy jobs outside my role as MP for Lower Bishop's Transford. And after a tireless 12 years of service in every single cabinet of every single Prime Minister since 2010, with an unbroken record of never once voting against the party line, I'm confident I represent the real change this country needs. Real values, real change, real estate. Back Beaufort for a better Britain. Oh, hang on, I'll do that again now. Back Beaufort for a better Britain.
Yeah, even better than Sir Ron. To hell with Sir Ron. That guy is much better. Okay. Let's move on to something slightly different. The situation
I find astonishing.
here is here's the Mayor of London, Sajid Khan, talking about the carnage that's been inflicted upon different parts of the UK at the moment because of climate change, and how things are getting out of control, and how none of the candidates are willing to talk about this. They're talking about cutting taxes, they're talking about woke issues, but they're not actually talking about climate change.
What I find astonishing is that this Conservative leadership contest is taking place during the worst heatwave in terms of temperatures reaching that I've experienced in my lifetime. And all the experts agree, by the way, it's unarguable that this heatwave we're experiencing across Europe is a direct consequence of climate change. What those aspiring to be the Prime Minister should be doing is setting out their plans to address the symptoms, the adaptations, the resilience as a consequence of climate change, the fires you're seeing, flash flooding we may well seen, as well as dealing with the causes of climate change as well. Rather than kicking the can down the road when it comes to tackling climate change, we should be sprinting towards getting to net zero. And by the way, having sustainable forms of energy, wind and solar, means we're not reliant upon stuff from Russia or Qatar or Saudi. So it reduces the price of our bills, but also by retrofitting, adapting our homes, our places of work, our public transport. It creates jobs in this country, jobs, in West Yorkshire, in Ballymena, in Falkirk, making these buses, making the air cooling systems, fitting the electric vehicle charging points. And so it's a virtuous circle. And so it beggars belief to me that anybody who aspires to be the leader of our great country doesn't understand that the crisis we face in terms of what's happening today in relation to the fires, excess deaths, but also the causes of this as well.
Well said. I completely agree with Sajid Khan here. It's patriotism to care about your country, and part of your country is the environment within that country, is the people within that country. We need to tackle this crisis. We haven't been doing it. Why haven't we been doing it for over the last decade or number of decades? Because of politicians, weak politicians, and lobbying. The fossil fuel industry lobbying politicians, making sure that subsidies are maintained, that there is less investment in alternative energy. We could have dealt with a lot of these. We could have been truly dealing with this crisis before this was happening. And instead of waking up and saying, okay, now we actually have to do something, the politicians are sticking their head in the sand once again and talking about the weather, or talking, well, it's a lovely sunny day, just go out and get a bit of a tan. I think it was Dominic Raab said. The Deputy Prime Minister telling people, enjoy the sunshine. It's 40 frigging degrees in parts of the UK at the moment. Enjoy the sunshine. Kicking the can down the road. This is how we got home from school back in the 70s. It was a race. Hotter than a Tory near a school playground. It's going to get hotter year on year. It is. It's going to become more and more extreme. So you're going to have more flooding, more hurricanes, and more extreme temperatures. So it's going to get colder. In some cases, it's going to get very cold in the winters, and it's going to get very, very hot in the summers. 40 degrees. Like, This is, you know, when they talk about, oh, it was in 1976, it was a really hot summer. This is becoming the normal. That was abnormal. This is becoming the normal. The next number of years, you're going to see more and more of this. God forbid it goes beyond 40 degrees. Patriotism is one of the big problems the world faces, past, present, and future. There was 100% humidity here earlier. Well, it was in the shower at the time. I was in the shower. House insurance is going to go up. It's likely. Certain things will be covered. Used to be, you know, wouldn't be covered. Maybe some of them will be covered. Other things that used to be covered will not be covered. Or you have to pay more. I don't think many people will be getting much sleep tonight. Probably another overnight temperature record to be set. It already feels like an oven. Somebody was telling me it was almost 30 degrees at night. And you're going to start to see people in the UK installing air conditioning units. Water supply problems may become a real problem here in the UK. You have to pump water in from the sea and desalinize it, but that's very expensive, and the water companies are private, so they're going to see about making money. And you know, there's something I have a big problem with as well as over here where I live. There's a huge plastic water bottling plant. And they're taking huge amounts of water out of the ground and shipping it all over the friggin' world. That's unacceptable. In California, they used to have wildfires every few decades. Now it's happening every year. That was from a climate scientist. Yes, and we're hearing about them every year. And we say, well, how is it possible that they're having wildfires every year? Thanks, Fearless. Thanks for that super chat. And it's correct. It's happening every year. Used to be random. Used to be very infrequent. Now it's happening all the time. This situation of the fires, I just want to show you a bit about that as well.
A new record temperature has been set. The village of Coningsby in Lincolnshire has hit 40.3 degrees Celsius this afternoon. That is now the UK's record temperature. Just let that sink in for a little bit. It's getting hotter. I mean, it's nearly 5 o'clock in the evening, but temperatures in some parts of the UK still creeping up. Professor Galea, I mean, you know, it's not a competition. Nobody wants to break these records today. It's really grim. It's really grim out there today. It is going to change tomorrow. But as we prepare for a new kind of normal, how much more of this do you think we will see, and how frequently?
I think there's a good chance that we're going to be seeing this sort of thing every summer season. And what's even more concerning on the continent in Europe, the fire seasons were strictly restricted to the high summer. But now what we're seeing in Europe because of climate change is that the fire season is spreading to occur outside high summer and even outside of summer. And we're reaching a point in mainland Europe where the fire season could be all year round. We're not anywhere near that in the UK, but certainly in the summer season, what we're seeing on the sky screens now could become the norm. And we need to prepare for that, both in our planning and in our behaviour. As I said, days of total fire ban. We should be looking at introducing that in the UK to remove the chances or reduce the chances of accidentally starting fires in the parched, dry environment.
Because these fires, even if it is a case of arson, they consume everything because everything is so dry. If it's been raining for a few days and there's an arson attempt, it doesn't get very far. But this can destroy massive tracts of land. Magic, thanks for that super chat. We need to improve insulation. It keeps the heat out as much as it keeps it in. People forget this. Yes, there needs to be a massive investment in insulation. retrofitting homes. It reduces bills. It means that they consume less energy. So it's good for the people living in the homes. It's good for the environment because you're consuming less energy. It's good all round. It creates jobs as well. You need people to go into these homes, to install this insulation, to put in new windows, things like this, double glazed or triple glazed windows. This is what's necessary. You create jobs, you create investment, you invest in local communities by doing this. It's generally going to be local operators that's doing this work. This is what the government should be investing in, and they don't want to do that because this is long-term thinking. It's all about short-term thinking. It's all about, yeah, let's throw money at the military now because it sounds cool. This isn't sexy. It's not interesting for people to hear about. That's why the politicians are not interested in doing it. And this is the consequence of that. Alistair, thanks for the super chat. I had a few day heat stroke at Edinburgh Hospital. Sorry, had a few today heat stroke at... My God, heat stroke at Edinburgh Hospital. I hope the people are okay. It's going to become more and more common, and it is a big issue here. For example, in Italy, we hear about the elderly. A lot of elderly people die during the summer because they just can't take the heat, and they get dehydrated because they don't drink enough water, enough fluids. It's a massive problem, and also there are issues of differences in temperature, and this is something to be very careful of. If it's very hot outside, you go into a supermarket or shopping center, it can be very cold inside, and this can create problems as well. Adam, thanks for that super chat. I love I'm Australian, but this is not normal for outer Pongolia. It's not normal. It's not. I know it looks like something from Australia. It looks like a bushfire, but this is the UK. It's not Australia. This is insane. But there is no attempt to deal with this. It's all just ignoring it. Let's just ignore it. Put your head in the sand. There was Tory MPs calling this woke. It's 40 degrees and people want to stay inside with the air conditioning on. They're just woke. They're snowflakes. Even turning this into some sort of culture war battle. It's disgraceful. Some people are willing to fight back, and some people have been fighting back for some time. This is Extinction Rebellion protesters smash windows of News UK over coverage of Britain's heatwave. Extinction Rebellion protesters have smashed windows at the London headquarters of Rupert Murdoch's company in protest at his outlet's coverage of the climate crisis. Activists targeted the News UK building next to London Bridge Station early on Tuesday morning, destroying glass panels and putting up posters reading, "Tell the truth, 40 degrees equals death," next to the entrance used by journalists at The Sun and The Times. Don't call them journalists at The Sun. There's no such thing as a Sun journalist. Extinction Rebellion said it was taking non-violent action to highlight the way that the record-breaking heat in the UK is being treated as an upbeat story in parts of the media. As you can see here, this is from The Sun. Hotter than the Sahara. Yeah, it's so cool. It's super scorchio. A spokesperson said, instead of warning readers of the increased risk from such heat waves as the climate crisis intensifies, the Sun chose to cover their front pages with women in bikinis, beachgoers, and happy toddlers with ice creams. They also criticized the Monday's front page headline from the Daily Express, owned by rival newspaper publisher Reach. It featured the words, "It's not the end of the world, just stay cool and carry on." Wouldn't it be terrible? And I hope this never happens, but it would be terrible if the Sun newspaper burnt down and the Express burnt down. It would be terrible. I hope that never happens. Extinction Rebellion protesters had previously held marches outside the News UK building. Look, News UK this is treason. Okay? What they're doing is treason. And it's not just about the weather, about climate change. Everything they do is treason. They lie to the public. They print barefaced lies. They push propaganda. They convince people to vote against their own interests. They convince people to support ideas which are against their own interests. How is it possible that somebody like Rupert Murdoch is able to pump this sort of propaganda into people's minds? And these are the newspapers that are responsible for attacks on migrants. These are the newspapers that are responsible for people voting to make themselves poorer, or to be angry with single mothers, or people on welfare, or foreigners, or Europeans, or Remainers, or left-wing politicians, and to go out and do untold things to them. I really have a thing with it. If I was in charge, I closed them down. Okay, the Sun would be gone. Rupert Murdoch would be a persona non grata. No, actually, he would be in prison. How is it? And anyway, these guys are heroes. Kudos to them. Extinction Rebellion. It goes on to say, Extinction Rebellion protesters had previously had marches outside the News UK building. News, yeah, it's not news, it's Propaganda UK building. In 2020, they also fully blocked printing presses because of Murdoch's News UK and other newspapers disrupting distribution of titles such as The Sun, The Times and The Sun. Some journalists at News UK pointed out that they have regularly covered the extent to which climate change is changing due to human influence, including front page articles and recent. No, they're not. Climate change has been a contentious topic with Rupert Murdoch's family, with his son issuing strongly worded statement in 2020 criticising ongoing denial of the company's Australian outlets about the impact of climate change. In Australia, it seems to be worse than in the UK. Like Sky News Australia is bloody Fox News on steroids. I've seen it a number of times, and it's really North Korean type crap. Worse than GB News. Actually worse. If you think it's possible, if you don't think it's possible, yes, have a look at Sky News UK. Not Sky News UK. Sorry, not Sky News UK. Sky News Australia. It's absolutely insane, and it's pure propaganda. It's not. They don't tell the truth. It's just propaganda. Murdoch's other global media interests have also adopted a more stringent skeptical positions on climate change, including Fox News Channel in the US, as well as Sky News Australia and numerous newspapers in his native country. People need to stop buying The Sun. People need to stop reading the Daily Express. When I use the Daily Express, I use it to mock it. Okay? There's a difference between promoting it and mocking it. It just needs to be. Why does it exist? It doesn't present news. It's just propaganda, pro-Tory propaganda, pro-Boris Johnson propaganda. It's just whatever Rupert Murdoch feels people should believe. Not reality, not fact. Sorry, I'm getting a bit sidetracked there. Herbie, thanks so much for that super chat. Wallstrom celebrated with the fireworks. Oh my God. No, please tell me that's not true. I hope that's not true. Tomalek, thanks so much for that super chat. Is this Borski's Blitz, pretty much. Anyway, let's. This issue really angers me, because there's a real crisis, and you have ridiculous newspapers like this continuing to convince people there's nothing to see here, there's nothing to worry about, everything is fine. Don't be concerned, because if you're concerned, what you would want is action. And who is responsible for the crisis that we're sitting in at the moment? Politicians around the world and the people who give them money. Because if the people stand up and say, why are we having this problem? And start asking questions, it's going to make politicians and the people who fund these politicians very worried. Anyway, I want to talk about the strikes that are taking place, but before we get to that, I just wanted to cover this story as well. It says here, Citizens Advice referring 700 people a day to food banks, up from 400 last year. This is from yesterday. Damn, okay. Media outlets should never be profit oriented. Well said, number 3. If you have a newspaper, but even in a sense, the Sun is not profit driven. It's propaganda driven. So the Sun is actually not making money through its newspaper. It's not actually profit driven at this stage. It used to be probably, but now it's not. It's just it's losing money. But Rupert Murdoch knows that he can use it as a political tool. So that's why it's writing articles like this. That's why it's pumping out crap like that. Thanks for that super chat, but I, in some sense, yes, it's profit driven, but in other senses, it's just propaganda driven. It says here, Citizens Advice is now referring almost 700 people a day to food banks, up by around 300 on last year, as staggering numbers turn to the service for help. And this, of course, was not mentioned during the Tory leadership debate. Why wasn't this a question asked of the candidates? 700 more people a day are turning up to food banks. What are you going to do about that? Your party has been responsible for this. What are you going to change? Morgan Wilde, head of policy at Citizens Advice, told newspaper, staggering numbers of people are seeking our help because they simply cannot keep up with rising bills. The food shop isn't stretching as far. It's costing more to keep up, to top up the meter, and increasing numbers of people are ending each month in the red. We're hearing stories of parents washing their children's uniforms at their grandparents and skipping meals simply to keep afloat. Many have already turned to us to help with food banks because they've gone days without anything in the cupboards. The organisation, which offers advice and support from approximately 2,500 locations in England and Wales, said between the 1st of January and the end of June this year, it had helped almost 120,000 people access crisis support such as food banks, charitable aid and local welfare assistance. This is also another issue that I have a problem with, the idea that people need to go to Citizens Advice in order to get information about what the government is supposed to be giving to people, instead of you going to a government office and the people in the government office telling you what your rights are. They don't tell you what your rights are. They don't try and help you in most cases through this because it's against their interests. If the Department of Work and Pensions is outsourcing most of its work to the private sector and their job is to get people off benefits, then they're not going to help you when you go in and ask, what benefits am I entitled to? You have to actually go to a charity to tell you which benefits you're entitled to. Just think about that for a moment. There's a government department whose job it is to provide people with information to access, to gain benefits, to access benefits that they're entitled to, and to provide people with the information they need in order to gain those benefits, to get access to those benefits. And the government department have outsourced this work to a private company, maybe a a Tory donor, I don't know, but to a private company. And this private company's sole objective is to make a profit. And how do they make a profit? By kicking people off welfare, kicking people off benefits. It was 52% higher than the same period last year during a national COVID lockdown, and 182% up on the same period in 2019 before the pandemic. Mr. Wild said the government's recent cost of living payments would support families struggling the most. However, he warned there were choppy waters ahead and the government needs to be ready to act again this winter. The figures came after a survey for the Eye this month revealed 67% of Britons are worried about their household's ability to pay for essentials such as food, diesel, petrol, gas and electricity, and 56% believe their household finances had got worse in the previous 12 months. Food banks operators told Eye they are struggling to cope with donations dropping by 45% while demand had soared by 50%. The Truss Trust, which supports a UK-wide network of food banks, said it distributed more than 2.1 million emergency food packages between the 1st of April 2021 and the 31st of March 2022, up 14% on the same period in 2019 and 2020. Now, the Tories will come out and say, well, yeah, there's the pandemic and stuff like this, but no, it's not about the pandemic. This has been rising since they came to power. This is about keeping people poor. And if they're struggling, they're not complaining. They're not protesting. They're not informing themselves about what they can do to fight back. Because they're too busy. They have too much on their hands. They're too much on their plate. Number 3, Martin Lewis issued a dire warning today. I didn't see that. I will check that out. And I might do a video response to it. I heard something about it. I didn't get a chance to see it, but I will check it out. I think something about what's going to happen in October, I imagine, because he has mentioned before that the cap is going to be increased once again in October. And you also have to look at what's happening around this as well. There is no government. There is literally no government because Boris Johnson is doing what? What is he doing during this cost of living crisis? Why isn't he dealing with this? He's doing loop-the-loops in fighter planes. He's having parties at Chequers. And his supporters within the government and in the party are making excuses. And none of the Tories who are hoping to replace Johnson are mentioning the cost of living crisis. Yeah, I'm going to vote for me and I'll help people out. I'm going to cut taxes. Cutting taxes is not helping people who can't afford to pay their bills. Cutting taxes is not going to help people avoid food banks. The food bank losers can pick fruit. That's another problem. How many food banks is there in the now in the UK since the Tories came to power? 5,000. Before the Tories, would you believe this? Before the Tories came to power, I think in 2008, there were 8 food banks. Something like you could count them on 2 hands. It was less than 10 as far as I know. Between 7 and 10 food banks in all of the UK. Or maybe there were 12, but it was a very, very small number. Now there are thousands. There are more food banks than there are McDonald's restaurants. A lot more as far as I know. And they're increasing all the time. Bozo is enjoying life, Max. He just doesn't understand why everyone else isn't. He's got his bucket list to deal with. I smashed it earlier, but not like Prince Andrew. Oh my god. We always need a bit of comedy though, to keep ourselves sane. Some people are fighting back and not taking it lying down. Not in the sense of food banks and stuff, but, well, it says here Royal Mail workers will to go on strike over pay. More than 115,000 Royal Mail workers have voted to go on strike in a dispute over pay. Members of the Communication Workers Union, CWU, backed the action on Tuesday after ballot papers were sent out 3 weeks ago. Any strike dates are yet to be decided, but the CWU said if a walkout goes ahead, it could amount to the biggest ever action taken by its members. Royal Mail said it was disappointed by the move. In the event of industrial action, we have a contingency plan to minimize customer disruption, and we will work to keep people, businesses and the country connected, as a statement said. The CWU is the latest of several unions to ballot for strike action in recent weeks as the cost of living soars. Workers on the railways and at airports are also in pay disputes with employers, with prices for goods in the UK rising at the fastest rate in 40 years. The union said postal workers would not budge until they received a dignified proper pay rise. Responding to a tweet in the Royal Mail, in which the Royal Mail said it was disappointed at the vote, the CWU tweeted, dry your eyes, mate. So the Royal Mail company said, yeah, we're disappointed that they're going to work, and it's like, go to strike, dry your eyes, mate. Yeah, good response. But because people are not able to continue on this. They cannot continue to deal with the rising cost of living and do their jobs. Now, the government have responded to this, it seems, by giving some sectors a pay increase. So it says here, NHS staff to get 4.5% pay rise, teachers 5% and police £1,900, but unions say it's a kick in the teeth. Drums to the bass, whoop, great to see you on the stream once again. I hope you're well. Hi Max, I think there's an imminent recession coming, and the likes of Martin Lewis are warning us. This plus shortages and lack of government. I think a fundamental problem here is there is a lack of government intervention. Boris Johnson spinning his wheels, quite literally in some senses, in some ways, and there's no action being taken. People are going to, if there's a recession coming, they're not going to do anything to deal with it. They'll just start blaming people. Blame the EU. Blame people for asking for more money. Blame, immigrants. Blame Ramoners. Blame the public. Blame, I don't know. They're not going to blame themselves, of course. They won't say, we are responsible for this because we didn't tackle it and we were sitting on our hands waiting for Boris Johnson to leave when he felt like it. This is incompetence on an epic scale. And it's just going to get worse. Thanks for that super chat, Drums to the Bass. They don't care, and because they know that they will not be affected by it. Can you imagine if Liz Truss and Rishi Sunak or whatever discovered tomorrow that their salaries had been stopped because they're not working? Priti Patel didn't bother to go to a select committee, but she's still getting paid. Liz Truss decided, I'm not going to a select committee, but she's still getting paid. Can you think of a job where you don't do your work, don't do your job, and you still get paid? You're told you have to go to this very important meeting. You don't go, but you still get paid. You're still able to claim hundreds of thousands of pounds in expenses, even though you don't do your job. They're taking the piss. Incompetence at an industrial scale. We can pray for help from God. That always seems to work, yes. Jared Casey, wow. What a pay rise with inflation at 9.5%. It's a reduction in pay. Don't forget tax rises and national insurance increase. Add the cost of energy and you're likely 20% plus down. Yes. This is what's being mentioned here in this article. All police ranks will get the same amount of extra pay from the 1st of September, with those on the lowest pay getting an uplift of up to 8.8%, and those on the highest receiving between 0.6% and 1.8% increase in their annual salary. The minimum starting salary for a police constable degree apprentice will be raised to £23,556 from the 1st of September. More than 500,000 nurses, paramedics, midwives, porters and cleaners will get a pay rise of at least £1,400, with the lowest earners receiving up to 9.3% increase backdated to April, Department for Health and Social Care said. Teachers, it also says doctors and dentists, but also teachers, starting salary outside London will rise by 8.9% to £28,000, while experienced teachers who have been in the profession for more than 5 years will get a 5% pay increase from September. The base pay for armed forces staff will increase by 3.75%, while senior military will get 3.5% rise. These recommendations were all accepted in full by the different government departments, which said the increase recognises the contribution of key workers while balancing the need to protect taxpayers, manage public spending and not drive up inflation. This is nothing to do with inflation. Inflation is being driven by external factors. However, unions said it was a kick in the teeth, as in real terms pay cut due to high inflation, which is forecast to climb to 11.7% this year. The Unite General Secretary Sharon Graham said the government promised rewards for the dedication of the public sector workforce during the pandemic. What they have delivered instead is in real terms is a kick in the teeth. The so-called wage offer amounts to a massive national pay cut. We expected the inevitable betrayal, but the scale of it is an affront. Unison said the government had made a big mistake and accused the government of having scant regard for the millions of people languishing on waiting lists for tests and treatment. Fed up staff might well now decide to take the matter into their own hands. So it's possible that so if inflation is running at 11% and someone is given 3.5% as a pay increase. Now, some people are getting more than 3.5%, some are getting up to 8%, but there has been a pay freeze as well. So while inflation this year is 11%, and you have been on a pay freeze for 2 years, then inflation is much more than 11%. So I think what's going to happen is we're going to see strike action. The government are saying this is what we're going to give you, like it or lump it. The unions are saying this isn't acceptable. We can't live with this. Danny Mortimer, chief executive of the NHS employers, said that they were pleased the pay rise for NHS staff was above the original 3%, but said it still places NHS and public health work leaders in the impossible position of having to choose which services they will cut back on in order to fund the additional rise. So what's happening is it seems that the government are saying to the NHS, you have to pay these increases, but we're not going to give you more money. So what do is they have to cut back on services. And this is part and parcel of the privatization idea. We underfund the NHS. So what we do is we give the NHS more money, but then we force the NHS to pay people more money, which is outside their budget. They don't have the budget to cover that, so they have to cut back on services. So it's amazing politically. The Tories say, look, we've invested more in the NHS. Obviously, it's not enough because the NHS now have to pay higher wages to keep the staff. But then they end up not being able to keep the staff because it's not enough, and they also cut back on other services, which means that they will not be able to provide the care that they want to provide. And what happens then? Well, people who have money will go privately. And this is a win-win for the Tories. They're claiming we're investing more in the NHS, but in real terms, what's happening is more and more people are relying on the private sector, which is donating to the Conservative Party or is providing jobs for members of the government when they finish their role within government. Here's a job. Here's a very cushy job as a non-executive director in one of our companies where you basically do nothing and we pay you a massive salary. Why? Well, because you scratched our back when the time was necessary. This is how government works, guys. This is how politics works. It's not about you voting for a policy, especially when it comes to the NHS. And this is really frustrating. And this is what people need to know. What's happening is there is a drive to privatization, but it's not privatization as in, here we've privatized the NHS. That's not what you're going to hear. What's happening is they are cutting services. They're forcing NHS Trust to cut services because they have to manage their budgets. These increases are not coming out of more money from the taxpayer. This is money that the NHS already has. They have to maintain these budgets. They're given a little bit more money, but it's not enough to cover these costs, these rising costs to pay people. And you're going to see more and more people leave, more and more services cut back because they don't have money or cut back because they don't actually have the staff. And the customer, for a better term, the patient will go privately if they can afford it. And if you can't afford it, then you just have to wait and criticize the NHS and complain about how it's not working. And what will you do? Well, you're going to turn around and vote for someone like the Conservatives because they're going to tell you, well, look, we invested in it and it's not working. It's not our fault. Maybe if we privatize more of it, it'll work. Yeah, that's right. There's a guy on who has a posh accent who's telling me that if we privatize more of the NHS, it will be better. Okay, and well, the Sun newspaper told me the same thing as well. So well, then they're probably right. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Out of context question: why do citizens blame outsiders for the problems that they both face? A citizen and a refugee live in squalor, and the former blames the latter. Why? Somebody help me here. Because it's about it's complicated. A very, very good question. A very, very good question. And I was thinking about this a lot as well. Why do people who are struggling, why are they angry with people who are also struggling? Because they have been taught that you should be angry with the person who has. So, for example, you have nothing and you're not very happy about that. And you see somebody who gets something, even anything, then you'll be angry with them. So this is why you see many people who may be on some sort of welfare, could be universal credit. I'm not criticizing people on universal credit, but you sometimes hear this from people who may be on universal credit and who vote Tory or vote for parties like this. They'll be angry with other people, but they'll never be angry with their so-called betters, because they will see the so-called betters like Jacob Rees-Mogg and Boris Johnson. They will see them as, well, they are above me. They won't come out and say it, but they will say, well, these people deserve what they have received in life. And I don't have the things that I want, but if I see somebody else down the street who's more like me, getting something that I didn't get, then I'm going to be more angry with them than I'm going to be with the likes of Boris Johnson or Jacob Rees-Mogg. Because whatever I see Jacob Rees-Mogg having, I'll never have. And they have internalized this hatred towards other people on their same level. And the newspapers have fed into this as well. So there'll be people on welfare, on benefits, who will read in their Sun newspaper or Daily Mail or Express or whatever about someone also on welfare or on benefits going on holiday 3 times a year, or having 25 children, unlike Boris Johnson, having 25 children, and each of these children are also on some sort of benefits. And they'll be conditioned to believe that even though they are on benefits themselves, that this is normal behavior. This is normal. You know, isn't it strange if it appears on the front page of a newspaper? Newspapers don't normally publish normal things. You know, they're sensational. So this is not normal, but they're being convinced that this is normal. And if they see somebody else getting something, they've been conditioned to be angry with those people. Not angry with the ones who are giving it, not angry with the people in charge, angry with the person on the same level. It's conditioning, because you're being told how to think. You're being told that your anger should be with people who have nothing, or people who have nothing and they're getting a little bit. You don't know their situation. You don't know the situation of the person down the street. You don't know what they have and what they don't have. And if they receive something, you don't know the reason behind that. But you can be convinced that it's wrong and that you are right by the type of newspaper you read. The people running the newspapers know this, and they know which buttons to press, and they know that they are not affected by these things. The Sun, when they talk about single mothers, you know, living off welfare and living off the state, they don't truly care about that, but they know that their readers do, and they know that their readers that this type of information can be weaponized. Be angry with the people who are on your level. Don't be angry with the people above you, because once you become angry with the people above you, then all shit is lost. Okay, all shit breaks loose. Because then you'll be asking, well, let's have an investigation into the owner of the Sun. How much tax does he pay? Why does he not live in the country? Why does blah, blah, blah? Like, you know, how come he has 6 mansions and, you know, there are... some of them are owned by companies and not owned by him, and he has money in the Cayman Islands and stuff like this. And why does he want me to be angry with refugees in a boat and not angry with him? As soon as people start asking these questions, the whole house of cards collapses. And people have been convinced for years not to ask these questions, to be angry with people who have nothing or almost nothing. Fearless Wolf, thanks so much for that super chat. There are only 2 ways to lead. Either you divide and conquer, or you build and unite. Yes, and we need to build and unite. We need to work together. If it's about rejoining the EU, whether it's dealing with the threat of the Tories, to dealing with the corruption that's in both the media and within politics, we have to unite and build, or build and unite. Well said. Thanks for that super chat. Roisin, thanks so much for that super chat as well. Freddie, thank you so much. Have a 10-month wait for minor procedure in Ireland. When it comes to the situation in Ireland, thanks Gareth as well before that. I had a chat with somebody within my family about this, and I asked, why do we have a private healthcare system in Ireland? Why can't we just have a public one? Why do we pay VHI, voluntary health insurance, which is a type of insurance? I remember VHI has been around forever. Why do we pay that? Why isn't it paid through taxes? Why is there Bupa and all these other health insurance plans? Why are these necessary? Why do they exist? Shouldn't healthcare be a right for all people? Why is it when, you know, the Taoiseach or a government minister has an accident, they go to a private hospital and not to the public one? Why does that happen? Shouldn't they be going to the public hospital? Shouldn't everybody going to the public hospital? If the public hospital doesn't have the resources, that's not the problem with the hospital. That's because the government are not interested in funding it. We should not have private health insurance or private health clinics, apart from certain exceptions, maybe cosmetic surgery or something like that. You know, if I say, I don't like the look of my nose, I want it changed, that's not a medical requirement. So yes, if you want to pay for that, then okay, that's your choice. But for regular healthcare, we need to have it publicly owned. There's no, I can't think of a reasonable argument for private healthcare, apart from these exceptions of cosmetic surgery or something like that. Yeah, there will be some exceptions, but generally we're not talking about the exceptions here. We're talking about basic healthcare. There are waiting lists because we don't fund the public service enough. We don't have the staff available because we also have a private sector. Why is it that if you need a medical appointment, so Freddie, for example, I don't know your situation, but if you have to wait 10 months for a minor procedure, how is it that if you get on the phone and you say, I'm willing to pay, you can have it tomorrow? Why is that the case? It's not an issue of staff, if that's the case. It's not an issue of availability, if you can have the procedure done tomorrow. The procedure should, if there's a queue, it should be based on need, not on your ability to pay. If it was based on need, the government would have it perfectly funded, because if it was based on need and it was not based on pay, government ministers would have to queue like everyone else. And I can guarantee you, government ministers would not like to queue. A government minister would not be waiting 10 months to get a minor procedure done. They would want it done tomorrow or as soon as possible. And if they say, well, this is the way it is, fix it. That's what their response would be. How much money do you need to fix it? We will invest it today because I need it done. This is very simple. It's not complicated. But the system is designed to fail in this way. And I can think of no justification, bar cosmetic surgery or something like that, for having a non-publicly funded healthcare system. It's a privilege. If you have cash, you get it done now. Now, a problem also for the NHS is Brexit. A lot of the staff they need are no longer available. So there are waiting, and this is something the media doesn't talk about either. Many people are waiting because Brexit has reduced the NHS's ability to get the staff they need. So they have to cut back on services because they don't have the staff. If you cut back on services, then you're going to create longer waiting lists. And the Tories don't want to deal with that because that would mean actually admitting that Brexit is part of the problem. But they can't admit Brexit is part of the problem. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Primary health care should be free at point of use. 100%. 100% in agreement. Should be free. What is the point of having a government? I've said this, I think I said this at the very first live stream I've ever done. What is the point in having a government if it doesn't look after the health and education of its citizens? Please tell me. Jacob Rees-Mogg, if you're listening. I know for you it's probably about funneling money to the private sector or to donors. But in reality, what is the point of a government if it doesn't... You can add other things, but principally for me, it's the core is health and education. Government should provide education for the next generation, and should provide healthcare to the current generation. Okay, to everyone. Because if people are healthy, they're going to be more productive. If people are better educated, they're going to be more productive. So it's a win-win for our society. If we can get people access to high quality healthcare and high quality education. And that's what we should be focusing on. That's what we should be gaining. That should be our goal. Always. I believe you did, along with UBI, Max. Sneaking in UBI there. We're almost at the end of the stream, guys. I just wanted to cover one final thing. This is a report from dealing with the Labour Party. I hope I'm not going to step on anyone's toes here, but it says here, key takeaways from the Ford report on Labour factionalism. So it says there's deliberate a debilitating factionalism within the Labour Party. So this is a report that was released today. Martin Ford QC painted a depressing picture of the two rival camps based around Corbyn's office, so when Jeremy Corbyn was leader of the Labour Party, and Labour HQ in London's Victoria, locked in a bitter struggle for control, which hampered the functioning of the party. And I think this is something that most of us saw when when Jeremy Corbyn took over. Many people were not very happy. Some people were very happy. Other people were not very happy. And I'm going to try and I'm going to be as objective as I can by commenting on this. Yes, there were people who were not happy that Jeremy Corbyn took over, and they sought to undermine Jeremy Corbyn. Now, Jeremy Corbyn's supporters believed that they had won the battle, and they were willing. It seems not they. Some were not willing. So I'm not saying all. Some were not willing to mend the broken fences or mend to undo some of the damage that was done. It goes on to say, weaponizing anti-Semitism. Both sides used anti-Semitism as a weapon, with some denying its existence, while others using it primarily as a means to attack Corbyn. Yes, I think there are people within and this is a big problem, I think, within the Labour Party when Corbyn was there, is that people were suggesting that Jeremy Corbyn was anti-Semitic. And I do not believe that's the case. I don't think he's anti-Semitic at all. Some people believed he was, and they were trying to weaponize that against him. On the other side, there were, of course, people who thought there was no anti-Semitism within the Labour Party. And I talked about this before, how there are people who are very supportive of Palestinians, and they will react in a very negative way to the idea that they would see it perfectly justified in criticizing Israel, which is correct. It's a country. Every country can be criticized, but they would also criticize Jews in the UK for maybe siding with Israel or have been seen as siding with Israel, and they would see that as those people, it's justified to criticize them or to attack them in a sense. It's very, I think there was when Corbyn took over, a lot of people were very angry, and they were willing to use whatever they can against him. Dysfunctional discipline. Labour's disciplinary systems were not fit for purpose and exploited by many different factions. In 2016, there were 5,000 unresolved complaints, almost of a third of which were related to anti-Semitism, but Ford did not find evidence of systematic attempts by Corbyn's team to interfere in the disciplinary process. I think a case of there was just so many complaints being made that the staff didn't have the time probably to deal with them. In some cases, probably some of them were legitimate, others maybe not. If you have a very polarizing, and of course you have to admit that he was a polarizing figure, whether you agree with him or not, it's very difficult to identify if people's criticisms are legitimate or not, or if they truly want to present a legitimate criticism, because people may be trying to score points, or maybe people are criticizing others because they want to defend the leadership, for example. Gareth, thanks so much for that super chat. Government priorities: health, wealth, and education. Health should be paramount. Fair work should be compensated with a fair pay, and every single citizen should be entitled to a comprehensive education. 100% agreement, Gareth. Well said. I'm going to nick that. But you're right. For me, it's health and education. Of course, having a roof over your head, having access to work. In the Italian constitution, it's actually every citizen should, at the age of 18, should have the right to work. It's not always upheld, but it's something that, providing people the access to work and a decent rate of pay. For example, the the Conservative government allowed an increase in MPs' pay that was above the rate of inflation. So MPs are getting more than the rate of inflation, but they don't want anyone else to, saying that, well, it will drive inflation. Anyway, trot hunting and bell ringing. There was concerning behaviour by senior staff opposed to Corbyn attempting to expel party members. Staff described this process as hunting out thousands of trots, trot busting and trot spotting, trot hunting, and one suggested searching the pro-Corbyn hashtag #I'mWithJez to see if users had posted abuse. One employee described regular bell ringing in Labour HQ. My God, what a disaster. Abusive WhatsApps. We're going to read about the same sort of thing about the Conservatives probably in a few years' time. A leaked 2020 report which triggered the Ford inquiry was a factual document that selectively quoted some messages. But the Ford report found that the quoted WhatsApp group WhatsApps from the group of senior management overall were not misrepresented or misleading. 2017 election campaign clashes. Anti-Corbyn staffers in Labour HQ did not deliberately try to throw the election, as some left-wingers have suggested, but did set up a secret operation channeling funds to MPs who they wanted to protect. Lotto, meanwhile, sought to support its own favoured MPs. And I think this is probably a problem within the Labour Party at the time, was that some MPs were not happy that Jeremy Corbyn had taken over, and they were asking people who were loyal to them within the party to channel money to them to make sure that their constituencies were protected. And we saw, in 2019, how many MPs, both people who had been members of the Labour Party for a long time and also new people, lost their seats. It was a shit show. Alistair, thanks so much for that super chat. Max, haven't been able to join Discord chat. Help. Sorry to hear that. I will contact you after the stream and I'll send you a link, or maybe one of the moderators can try to contact you. We'll definitely get you on Discord, I promise. Sorry about that. I'm not sure what's happening there. We'll try and get you on maybe on the chat after the stream tonight. And then finally, just one of the final ones says here, racism. There was overt and underlying racism and sexism in the abusive WhatsApp messages, included in the leaked report, pointing to a deeper problem with racism in the Labour Party. This is something that many people find strange to believe. It says here in the report, racism in the party is not experienced by individuals solely through acts of aggression or microaggression towards them personally. It is experienced through seeing colleagues being passed over for promotion, being the only person from an ethnic minority background meeting around a meeting table, being managed by a near exclusively white senior team, and hearing the particular disdain which colleagues reserve for ethnic minority MPs, councillors and constituency Labour Party members. That's something that the Labour Party need to look into and try to resolve. Chaos in Corbyn's office. There was hostility from Labour HQ towards Corbyn's office, but his operation appeared deeply dysfunctional. Factional hires, recruitment based on battleground became a battleground in the struggle for control over the Labour Party under Corbyn's leadership, with both sides seeking to shore up their power base by hiring sympathisers, leading to a lack of diversity. And then Corbyn's cooperation. Almost no named individuals are criticised by Ford, but he observes that the former Labour leader did not himself respond to requests for interviews, instead signing a joint submission. It says here, regrettably, certain prominent members of the party, including those central to the factual matrix, either declined to meet with the panel or failed to respond to our requests for evidence. Most notably, Jeremy Corbyn did not engage in our request to interview him. And this is I think this is one of the big problems with Corbyn, is he doesn't like to be scrutinized. If he believed he did nothing wrong, that he should have been interviewed by the panel. Now, he probably, and his supporters probably thought, well, the panel is just a witch hunt, and we shouldn't give it the time of day. But you have to work within. If you don't attend, then they're going to say, well, you didn't bother to turn up. Oh, then what have you got to hide? At least if you present yourself and you answer questions, you can criticize the questions, but you're the one who's giving the answers. And not turning up, I don't think helps your case. I don't think this is going to really impact the Labour Party going forward. They have a new leader. They seem to have a new direction. Whether people agree with that or not remains to be seen, and whether it will work remains to be seen. The next election, and as with most elections, is a referendum based on the current party. So if Liz Truss becomes the Prime Minister, the next election will be, do you want Liz Truss to continue or do you want someone else? And I think it's probably going to be a case of, yeah, we're tired of Liz Truss, get her out. So guys, we're well over the time, so I want to say a massive thank you to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks so much for the super chats, greatly appreciated. And thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. Hopefully we can get Alistair sorted out. And then we can enjoy your company later on. Stay hydrated. You're having problems with wordy bits. Yes, I am. I'm a little bit tired. I had I'll just tell you guys. So I was in London, just to keep you informed. I was in London this weekend. As some of you have seen, I was on Byline Times last Friday. Saturday, I had a very interesting meeting. I might talk about that some other time. I don't know if I can tell you about it, so I has to keep it sort of hush hush, wink wink, say no more. But something may come out of that, and I will keep you informed if something does. I was due to fly back to Italy on Sunday, but I received a notification on my phone at 6:45 that my flight had been cancelled because of a strike here in Italy. And so I had to get the next flight, and the next flight wasn't until the next day. So I didn't sleep very well. It was very hot. I stayed in a hotel. We didn't have any air conditioning, just a fan. I tried to put out some videos. Some of them, the quality was not great. Did my best. So I'm still recovering a little bit. So guys, I want to say a massive thank you once again to everyone who came on tonight. Thanks for all of your support. Thanks to the moderators for doing a wonderful job. And thanks for you two for coming on and smashing the like button. But don't go yet. We have our one for the road. Hope you enjoy this. As always, you do. Me too.
I believe in this country. I believe in this party. I believe in this shirt. I believe in life after love. I'm fighting a positive campaign. I'm positive that all of the other candidates are pricks. I went to a terrible school, and look how well I turned out, which is why I believe that all schools should be just as terrible as mine was. I want to unleash this country's potential. I want to unleash tax cuts. I want to unleash the hounds. I've pledged that I will campaign as I'll govern. Unsuccessfully. I once had a job, so I know what tax is. I once went to school, so I know how to run an education system. I once was a sixer in Cubs, so I know about leadership. So hang on, you're for tax cuts and slashing spending, but not as much as me? All right, Chairman Mao. Look, it's important to remember that we've just experienced a once-in-a-generation crisis, and he was Prime Minister during a pandemic. Would I have Boris Johnson in my cabinet? I wouldn't have him in my house. You'd probably just find him in your drinks cabinet. Or your wife. There are no easy answers or straightforward choices in this job, I don't believe in slogans or catchphrases, which is why I have a very simple 3-word plan. Get Brexit redone. I want to bring people together, whether you voted leave or are a traitor. The thing about Boris Johnson is he was untrustworthy and dishonest, but he was also the only man who could get Brexit done, which shows what a great idea it must have been. We need to get growth, growing. I mean, we need to get going, growing. We need to get going, gone. We need gone, girl. No, we need to get going into the undergrowth. Sorry, can I do that again? This is live. Yes, I would sit down with Putin. I'd say, come over here, Vlad, let's sort this out over a cup of tea. I'll make it. Tackling climate change is vital, unless it increases costs on business, in which case can we really afford it? Sorry, can someone turn up the aircon? It's absolutely roasting here. I can't believe that some of the other candidates left their government posts in a time of crisis, even though I'm glad they did, because it brought to an end 2 years of chaos. I would never leave my government post during a time of crisis, even if by leaving my government post, I could stop the chaos. I hope that's clear. There's no need to have a general election because we were voted in 3 years ago with a massive mandate. The last 3 years have been a disaster. We need huge changes, but not to the mandate. That needs stability. Well, that was a bit of an ordeal. I can see why no one else turned up.
Wonderful. So guys, have a great week. I'll see you on Friday, same bad time, same bad channel. And for those of you who are on Patreon, I'll see you on Discord after the show in a few minutes' time. Take care, and I'll see you soon. And keep cool if possible. Good night.